Masi Boys Fishing Charters. He's going to talk. Hey, let's hear it for him. Oh, man, you know what he's asking for questions, but we're also going to talk about permit, pompano, and intercoastal gags. Which is always a lovely sight, especially with the winter coming up. Doesn't seem like it, but it's coming. There. Well, before I hand you over, my first question is, where have all the past crabs been this year?
A couple of them young boys around here have been getting them, so most of the crabs been flushing, but it hasn't been like it has the past couple of years. You don't get to August, you're not getting to September, outgoing tide, and getting them blinds passed. You're not getting the crabs like you used to, but you got to kind of bounce around. You got 600 boats in Terror, getting them, wiping them out. So that's where your past crabs are going, to everybody. All right, well, I'm Capt Joe. Been here my whole life. I've done every type of fishing that you could do. I like to do a lot of inshore, nearshore. What we're here to talk about is some permit, some inshore gags, some triple tail, snook, triple tail, redfish, anything you want to talk about. So I'll give you any ideas. I have a notepad up here. If anybody hasn't written any notes or any questions, do so now. I got a couple over here. Some of them not answering. So we'll start with permit. Permit are one of my favorite fishes to fish for. It's hard fighting fish. You gotta kind of know what you're doing. You gotta spend time. You can't just show up one day and go, I know how to do permit fishing. You gotta put in the time. It's not an easy deal. Like what Dan was talking about, you gotta get the past crabs. You gotta figure out what the tide is doing to get those past crabs. You look at your full moon, you look at your new moon. We always did 3 days before the moon, 3 days after. You go on a heavy outgoing tide. Sometimes they're a couple hours late, sometimes they're a couple hours early, but you gotta be out there. It's not fun. You can scoop up, 10, 12 dozen of them that day, pin them up. Find an area where it's not too much fresh water. It's going to kill all the past crabs. Blue crabs will live in it. But that way you got bait. You don't need a ton of bait. You feed them, some fish carcasses, anything around, they'll stay there. That's the first part of it. You got to have the bait. You can use big, large shrimp on them. That's like worst case scenario, but they will eat that. So go out permit fishing on a day. Say I'm out there, I'm leaving Jones Pass, I'm heading out. There's a couple wrecks all around here. You don't have to go too far. Some are out farther. You get out there, circle around the area you think that they are. You don't have to go fast. Just sit there, let your sonar do the work. You will mark them. Sometimes if you usually I'll stop about a mile before I need to be at, and I will idle. And I kind of know where they're going to be at. You might see them tailing. You might need to hold up. Them fish will sit there and tail. If they're tailing, get ready. They're going to eat. They'll blow up your float. They'll eat everything you want to throw at them. But you cannot scare them. If you scare them, it's over. It's done. But you want to, if they're out there, they're tailing, you set up, float a bait back. You want to see how you're anchoring up. Make sure you're doing the right thing. Don't want to get ahead of yourself. If you don't see them, get to your spot. You might see a couple marks. Sit there and wait. Throw out 2 crabs out the back. Throw out 2 knocker rigs to do some bottom fish to keep everybody busy. Those permit will smell the crabs. That's what they're fixated on. They will find them. There's not too many of them floating around there, not getting eaten. So that's kind of what I like to do. Sometimes you can, like I said, sometimes they'll be floating on the side. You just see a bunch of fish sitting there on the side, and you're going, "What is that?" Bunch of permit. But it's not something that everybody fishes for, but it is an awesome fish to try to have one on and try to reel them up. They fight very hard. They're really good eating. I don't recommend killing everything, but they are pretty darn good. But yeah, it's kind of what I think about permit fishing. If anybody has any questions about that, if they've ever tried it, now's the time to ask before I get on to the next topic.
What's the best month?
Me personally, I start in March. First week of March, that's my favorite month, because nobody's out there doing it. The crabs are flush, and you gotta work to get them. So you might have to go at night. Skyway, Pasadena Drawbridge has them, John's Pass. You gotta look at the tides. You need a heavy outgoing flow to get them crabs. Skyway, you can kind of get them, they're just kind of come through. But say you get 6 crabs, head out there and give it a go, because nobody else is doing it. Those fish are out there. I've caught fish from January all the way to December. Now, it's not as many, but they're there. Now, even if they're there, they might not eat. I've gone at times where we had one trip this year. Water was crystal clear, 40 foot. You could see all the permit you wanted. I had to drop down to 15-pound leader to get them to eat. Do I want to do that? No. But that's what you had to do. They would not eat anything else. You're throwing at them, you're doing everything right. You're taking a float off, you're doing everything you can to get them to eat. Sometimes they don't do that. But it's worth a try. March is my favorite to do because nobody's doing it. But April to May is your go-to. That's when all the crabs are flush and those fish are sitting on the wrecks. You can go out to Egmont, you can go out Fort Soda, you will see them. Bunce's Pass, there's permit everywhere. Whether they want to eat or not, that's up to you. But you gotta time it right. Don't sit next to a bunch of other boats. That's the last thing you want to do. Those fish, you don't know what those guys are doing. They're banging around, hitting sinkers on the side of the boat. Them fish, they're not playing around. So, but if you're in an area where you know they're going to be out on a wreck, these fish sometimes will sit right near you. They come right into the back of the boat, or they will just sit there and circle around that wreck. So you might get 2 bites right now. Oh man, they left. Wait 20 minutes. They come back around. Go again. I took old Torn out. We did that. It was about every 10 minutes. Fish come back around. Fish are at the boat, but you can't expect it to be like a trout, where you can just throw out, reel up a lure, and that's what's going to happen. So you got to put in the time. Sometimes they are there, they're not going to eat, but it is a very rewarding fish to fish for and catch. Not a lot of people get to do it, but one of the things I always try to tell people so I got 2 setups here. One is for my heavier fish. I'll use for tarpon, some big snook, permit, kind of everything really. It's heavier inshore gags. It's 8-foot rod. I don't know what I got on here, Saragossa or something, 8,000. But I got 50-pound braid. And for this I rigged it up to show you guys what I do for permit. So you see the float there? I've got that, and that's a 12-foot leader for 30-pound fluorocarbon with a 2-aught circle hook. That's so when you put the crab, you don't kill the crab, and it doesn't look ridiculous. You can't be putting a 7-aught hook on a crab. Doesn't look right. And there's a split shot right above the hook, because that crab will like to float up. You don't want that. Sometimes they'll be on the surface, sometimes they're not on the surface. So that's what I kind of like to do, is put that split shot on there. So you see the red or orange, whatever you want to call that, that's the float I got there. I'll put one green, and I will put one, because sometimes they're a little bit up, sometimes they're a little bit down. And you will see that one will get eaten constantly before the other one. But the float will go down, start reeling. Don't be doing anything crazy. That float will go down. They got soft rubber lips, and do not horse them. This is not an amberjack. Don't do anything dumb, trying to rip it out of the water. If you try to do that, first thing it's going to do is go straight down, and the Jewfish is going to eat it. So if you just keep steady pressure, the fish will go up and out around the structure. And you'll tire out in the first couple runs. It might go down, but if it goes down, it's going to get eaten by a Jewfish or breaking off, one or the other. So I like to not put as much pressure. Just keep reeling, keep tension, let them come up, out. If one gets away from that structure, that's when it's good. If not, it's not going to be a pretty sight. You're not going to like it. But that's what I do with that. Anybody got any questions?
Which moon phase do you like the best?
What moon phase?
Honestly, I need a little bit of tidal flow.
What was the question?
Okay. What moon phase do I like the best? Probably, I do like when the crabs are flush because it makes it easy. So full moon, new moon, because I can get the crabs very easily. But sometimes that heavy outgoing flow, when you're trying to float a crab out back to them, it just gets out of the zone. So if it's a full moon or new moon, I want to have that bait out before that tide switch, probably 2 hours before, because it's very slow. That slow incoming, barely pushing that crab. Crabs, so tide's not going, got the float, 12 foot down, it should be down 12 foot. If it's an outgoing tide, it's cooking, that thing's on top of water. You're never going to be able to get enough stuff on. Now sometimes it might be up top. Egmont, you can do it. But I wouldn't even use a float. I would just throw a little split shot and see if you can get them. But I like when the tide is just about to switch. If you're going to do the full moon or new moon, it's easier for me because I get the crabs. But anytime where the tide is not cooking, I like it because I can get my baits in that zone and I don't have to move. I don't have to mess around with any of the seaweed. You got the heavy outgoing, you got seaweed messing with your lines. That drives you nuts. So, thanks for your question. Anybody else?
Yep.
Thank you. Do you get the bait the day of? Usually we get the bait weeks before. If it's crab time, we're usually pinning them up for tarpon, permit, and all that stuff. But crabs are live, so what you do is, if anybody has never done getting past crabs or small blue crabs, sheeny crabs, whatever you want to call them, scoop them up on heavy outgoing tides, say 3 days before that, the full moon or new moon, and then we will take the claws off without killing them. So you gotta take little pliers, you got dirty hands like me, you just break the claws off and they come off. They'll inject the claws. Pin them up, put a couple fish carcasses, they will last a long time. But you have this for tarpon or permit. You have this certain time of the year they do that. If you just break the claw off, they die. So it's a kind of a little science deal to it. But yes, we try to have bait before the trip.
Joe? I might have missed it, but did you say you also hit the small blues?
Dennis just asked if they hit the small blues. They love the small blues. They love them. Now the small, so there's blue crabs and past crabs, and there's other varieties of them. You got the purple legs, you got the red legs. The red legs are a hardier crab. Now the blue crabs, you can put a hook in them, and it doesn't matter. They're never going to die. So you hook them right. Hook them right in the point. Wiggle your hook, real nice and easy through them. They don't die. They just don't. They're a very hardy crab. You can throw them a mile. They don't come flying off. Purple leggers, they drive you nuts. So you got to just kind of be nice to them. So they're usually the first ones that get eaten independent. So, but yeah, the baby blues are good. Anything else? Kenny, stop talking. All right. Anybody else want to talk about anything else, or before I go on to the next deal? All right.
How many brothers do you have sitting up there with you?
I don't know any of these degenerates. I do have 2 younger brothers. One's a captain of Palmetto. The other one is busy with kids, driving them nuts.
No, these
But
guys don't work.
we'll do inshore gag. We're getting to September 1st. We got 15 days. We're probably going to get a hurricane September 1st. We're not going to be able to do it. So we'll see how it goes. But this is what I do. I use a little more beefier setup than what I got here. I'll use the same size reel, but I'll up the leader to 50 pound. If the water's a little dirty, I will go up to 80 pound. But we use bait traps, get some pinfish, grunts. You want to be set up. You need at least 100 baits to go out there. If you're just targeting gag grouper with the limited amount of time that we have, you need to have the bait. Don't play around, don't skimp on it. Some people use thread fins. I'm not playing around with that. I want big grunts, I want pinfish. So, areas I'm heading, rock piles. A lot of the guys in the Skyway area, they know the deal. You got those little drop-offs. Me personally, I go out to about 9 miles. So that's what my license is able to do. We'll find ledges. We're dropping baits down there. If that bait doesn't do what it needs to do, we reel it right back up, throw it right off. That bait, if it gets down there and the gag grouper's there, it's going to eat it. As soon as it gets down, stop playing around. That gag grouper makes a reaction, it's going to eat it. So, inshore-wise, when I'm doing them, I do not use a weight. I free line it all the way down. I hook it in the tail, use a 7/0, 8/0 hook. I'm saying heavy-duty tackle. It's usually like a 30% success rate, but you're talking 30, 35-inch gags and 20 foot of water. Most people, when it hits them, they don't know what to do anyways, but it's very tough to get them out. As everybody knows, grouper are laying right there on the bottom. They're not sitting up on the top. I know you've seen videos of it. I've never seen that in my life, where they're up on top, floating around like a triple tail. But they're down on the bottom. So as soon as they come up, they eat your bait, they're already back down on the bottom, and you feel that hit. So you don't want them to be in that rock. Crank that down, set that drag as tough as you can, just keep reeling. Try not to have that urge, just lift the rod up and do nothing. You gotta crank down. Crank that reel, most of our reels are getting like 36 inches every time you crank the whole handle. If you lift that rod, you get like 2 inches. Plus you might have some stretch on the line if you got mono or anything else. So just think about that when you get into September 1st. You only got 15 days, don't play around with it. Probably gonna have a little bit of bad weather. The water's still gonna be hot. They're not gonna wanna play around. You're probably not gonna be able to use plugs and troll them up and down. Usually we will do that method around when that water temp gets around a little bit underrated. So that's another way we do it. But usually, typically, if you're going on an inshore gag trip with me, we got 100 baits in there. We might throw a couple out, kind of get them fired up. But as soon as that bait gets down there, you need to be ready to do it. If you do break off that big fish, it's done. You're going to shut down. You know, that fish, you'll start thumping, and they'll tell the rest of them, hey, these idiots up here, they couldn't reel. So, no waste. We'll take everything else they throw down there. So, but it is very fun. Inshore gag grouper is totally different from doing it in 100 foot. You have a little bit of a window to get them up. You're talking those guys at the Skyway that they're doing that. Everything they're fishing, if you look at all these tables here, just put sharp rocks and crap all around them, leader line everywhere. everything it's going to do is going to break you off. Those fish know where to go. That's the angriest fish in Tampa Bay is a gag grouper. So that's kind of what I do with them. If anybody's got any questions, I'll let you know. But I think,
Any open dates for the season?
yeah, I do. I got pretty much all of September open. It's like the worst month of the year. But I think it's going to be all right. I just think it's a little hot. The gag grouper opening in that time frame is the worst. Thank you for the question, Dennis.
Did Zirkle just put a 27? Must be like another 12 foot of water this week.
Yeah, my brother down in Palmetto was getting them off bonita chunks in 8 foot. He was tarpon fishing, and all he could do is he put bonita chunks, and these gag grouper were eating them in 8 foot of water. So that's another thing, dead bait when the water temp's hot. I know I said live bait, but sometimes you take a blue runner, take the belly of the blue runner, you take mullet chunks, anything. Sometimes that might entice them. I hate dead baiting because I know it's on the bottom, and you got a really short leash of what's going to happen to you. So if I'm dead baiting, I'm using a 4-aught conventional rod. I'm using straight 100. I'm not even playing around because I don't want to get broke off. I got leads on there. It's more expensive. You know how inflation is. So I'm not playing around. 100 pound now, straight.
You know, one other question. When you're talking about 11, 12, 15, 20 foot of water, and 100 foot of water, 80 foot of water, what is the issue? What's the problem? I got the same fish. I got a 26-inch skin. I got 7 cranes to bring it up to the surface, or I've got 70 cranes to bring it to the surface. What is my problem with 100 foot of water?
Dennis asked a great question. He's wanting to know what's the difference in fighting a big gag in 12 feet of water compared to 100 feet. So 12 feet, there is structure. There is structure. Now, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of other fish. They are hunkered down on that structure no matter what. When they're in deeper water, they're a little bit off of it. But when you're cranking down, you get them a couple cranks up, that's it. That's it. They're up. They're going to start ballooning. Their stomach's going to come out. Their eyes are bulging. That's it. You maybe get like a couple little bobs. They might run down there. Now, you get the big ones. You get them 40 inchers. Yeah, no, that's like a 40-inch gag. Very similar to like a 27, 28-inch gag inshore. When you get those ones inshore, you get those first 2 cranks, they start going back down. That's when everybody gives up. And they think it's over. They're like, oh, we got it. And it takes another dive down there, and that's over. When you're talking about the relief in 20 foot or 12 foot, so you're looking at the table, I don't know what that is, maybe 3 foot, 4 foot? I don't know, not a doctor. But that could be the stuff that they could break you off in, or they're sitting under. Take a couple cranks, he might be under, he might go right back under. Offshore, it might be a foot. It might be a little ledge, a foot, and there's 12 gags. Or it might be a little sunken boat covered in sand. Now, they might get you under it. They might. But I've always found it a lot easier to get those offshore gags off. You just sit there and put that thing over your leg, get 5 or 6 good cranks on it, that's 6-aught, you're going to get them up. And, you know, you're using a little bit heavier tackle typically. But when you're doing the inshore stuff, you might have 50-pound braid, 60, 80-pound leader, and everybody gives up real quick. After those first couple big old head shakes, starts diving, they go, what the hell do I got on? And then bad things happen.
You're saying the structure is a little bit more pronounced, and it's less forgiving because once you get them off in 100 foot, they're comfortable to be 20 foot off their home. But in 12 foot, they know this is a problem. This surface is coming quick.
So in the relief, I think offshore, yeah, there is some areas that get a lot of relief. You get a 6-foot break maybe here or there. Inshore, that 6-foot, rock pile that you got, they're on the outside of it. And you're sitting on the outside throwing the bait, you got a little bit of scope. Those fish run out, a foot out, they cut you on. You got too much scope on the line. So sometimes you got to be right on it. North and south on them. I think just with the depth of it, they fight really hard. They don't give up. You really don't get them to give up till about 3 or 4 feet from the boat. So a lot of areas I fish, one of the worst things is we got our dolphins. They're trying to heat the grouper right before they get to the boat. So you got to crank them all the way up, and you just keep going till you see that fish right there. Tell people all the time, do not stop reeling until I tell you to stop reeling, because you think you're over, and then there they are. They eat your grouper, or that fish goes and dives back down, takes another thing under the boat. When you're reeling them from, say, 80 foot, 60 foot, when you're reeling them up, they're tired out. They're tired out. They ain't got no energy when they get to the boat. They're bloated up. They're half dead. Get them in 20 foot. You fight them for about 10 seconds. They're still green. They flop all over your deck, try to gill you. I don't know. Try it out. Dennis knows what he's doing.
It's not like the fish I chase, but I've caught a couple in the truck.
A couple hundred. Any other questions? Borat, what do you want? All right, we're going to move on. If nobody's got any questions. Okay. Okay, so, well, you know, hold on, guys, hold on, let me get a beer here. You guys are starting to get me fired up. Okay, so, I guess everybody was sleeping. Tommy must have been drinking a Tito's. So, September 1st to the 15th is when we got gag grouper season. Water's hot. Water is hot. Not saying that it won't work. If you're trolling plugs, you gotta know what you're doing before you go out there. Me and I don't know where Greg's at. He's probably back there doing whatever. But we have a rule. You lose a plug, that's it. We're done. Plugs are $40. We don't make that much money. Stuff breaks on the boats all the time. Thank you, Tom. So, you're trolling plugs. Now, when we had the grouper season, if anybody doesn't know, is 15 days this year. Last year, they snaked us. They got us good. They shut it down pretty early. Now, it used to run June 1st, December 31st. If you're trolling plugs from beginning of November to December, there is nothing better. Don't even mess around with the baits. Take 80-pound leader, take 10 foot of it, put it on a swivel. It's very simple. Throw out a big old stretch 30. Yozuri's got a couple of them. Nomads are pretty good. They're just, you got to look at how they run. Some of them come out of the box and they run a little different. So you put those out 100 yards off the back of the boat, sometimes 200, depending on what depth you are. If I'm in 40 foot, I might run them 150 yards off the bottom, or 150 yards off the back of the boat. You'll see that rod tip in there. Now the drag ain't locked down, but it's pretty close. You'll see that rod tip just bouncing. That's good. Sometimes you'll see it hang up. That's good. That's what you want. You might crank it in a little bit if you know that depth. That's what you want to do. You got to know what the depth is. You can't be coming off of 40 foot and going to 32. You're going to lose that plug. And that's it. We're shutting down the trip. It's $40. I mean, it's done. So you got to know. But you're running those plugs. I'll run 2 plugs off the boat. One real far back, one a little shorter. Always different colors. And usually the one that lasts the longest is the one on there. So you want to do that. Make sure your drag set good. I usually like personally on my boat, everybody's boat's different. 5 knots, 4 to 5 knots. Sometimes you might want to go a little faster, but I don't want to go any faster than that. You'll see the bottom coming up, and you know where your plug is back there. You'll come over that, and you'll see that rod just get smoked. Do not stop the boat. Keep going. That cat grouper's going to take you right back in there. Keep going a little bit. Make sure the guy that's on the back, just keep cranking. You can slow it down a little bit. Don't put the boat in neutral. It's not good. They'll go right back in there. But trolling is the most effective way to catch gag groupers, bar none. Especially if you're in the charter business, like I said, 30% success rate is what I have on my boat. I'm doing combat battle with big old gags. If you take that plug and do it, they're probably going to be about 80%. They're going to get them up. Now, we'll lose 20% on the rock when we hit it, or a crab trap, something like that. But a lot of times you double up. That's why you do not stop the boat. You will double up. So think about if somebody threw a cheeseburger 100 yards away from you, and you're sitting there staring at it, you're really hungry on an island by yourself, and it's coming, you're like, yeah, that's a cheeseburger. I'm probably gonna eat that. That's what that grouper's doing. And then he gets closer, he just eats it. That's what happens. They hear that vibrations, they know it's coming, they can see it coming. That's what they do. So that's why those plugs are so good. You can do it, Doug Hemmer, rest in peace, Doug Hemmer. He made a living on it in the intercoastal doing that before anybody did it. Take planers, so you can do plugs doing it, you can do planers, depending on your depth, what you want to do, big old grub tails, big jig heads. Some people tip it, I don't do that. But plugs are very good, but the water temp I don't think will be conducive for this year. Now, I'm not saying you can't get them, but I'm not doing it. But November, like last 2 weeks of December, that's game on. Them fish are fat, they'll eat everything, they're congregated on those ledges, they're on the rock piles. But I would recommend if you want to do that, before you do that, so say you're in May, and you got a day off, and you think you know what you're doing about the gag grouper, and you got a couple spots, you need to line up your areas and mark your GPS where you see that contour line, or you see them rock piles, or that ledge. You need to mark it, okay? Because it's not like you could drag these plugs around for miles. They're going to get hung up, a lizard fish is going to eat it, something's going to happen. You're going to lose it. You can't make tight turns, so don't do that. You're going to cross up your line. So always do one long, one short. But that's kind of what I like to do. But make sure you mark your stuff so you can just run up and down on it. Make sure the tide's the right way. I always like, if you think, here's Dirk. Dirk's got an orange shirt here. Tide's heading to him, right? That's where he's going to be looking at me. So I'm going to be trolling that plug right to his face. He's going to want to eat it. It's the other way, it's going over his back. He's not going to have that reaction time to it. So you got to kind of play around with it. But the guys that really know what they're doing, plugging for grouper, or kingfish, or anything like that, they know what they're doing. They're not playing around with it. They put it around in a little small area, and they get the fish. The guys that are going up and down the skyway in the middle of the channel for 2 hours, that's a lost cause. You need to just find your area that you can do it, and just go up and down that. There's a lot of area to mess around with, but those fish are going to be little pockets. Don't waste your time. You're going to get a little piece of seaweed on it. Your plug's going to be up 100 yards behind the boat, just smacking the water. So, I hope that answered your question, Tommy.
What about colors, Joe? I mean, you're looking at like yellows and oranges, you're looking like purple and black.
Glenn just asked what colors for the plugs. I like the black and gold. We had one on Greg's boat, the black and gold, rusty hooks. Did good. On my boat, I love the bright pink. Works really good. I do like the purple. Yozuri makes a bunch of good ones, but There's one that's like a blue top, silver bottom. Can't even look at mine.
He is funny looking.
But yes, there is colors you want to do. If the water's a little dirty, I like something that pops, but I am a firm believer in those grouper. See that plug coming through the line, they really don't care. Grouper will eat anything. It's all when they want to eat it. They're the dirtiest fish on the planet. Thank you, Glenn. Anything else? Alright, we're going to move on to... I want to bring this up because it's coming into season. These dirty stone crabbers are going to start dropping these traps all over the place. So, with them littering the waters over there, we can get these triple tails. So, so the triple tail is my favorite fish to eat. It's my wife's favorite fish to eat.
What about your daughters?
She likes salmon. So you're using the light tackle. So wintertime fishing, we're hitting a lot of the mitigation reefs. We're hitting a lot of the nearshore wrecks. The mackerel's pretty still good. So say I got 4 of these light tackle deals here. When we're hitting our spots, so if I'm off the beach and I'm hitting a couple spots, we're always running a crab line. You can pick your own favorite one. I have my own preference of what I like. There's a couple areas that do a lot better than others, but not saying you're not going to find them. You only get a 2-man, you get 2 per person. They got to be 18 inches. There's plenty of food. You don't need to kill everything. So, but we'll take this. This is 30-pound braid, 30-pound leader. I do like a heavier duty hook. Do not use that cheap one-off stuff on a triple tail. They'll make you pay. Those things are built tough. They're not playing around. They're built prehistoric. If you hook one and you don't have a sharp hook, you will not get it in their mouth. Now, if you're lucky enough, they go back to the buoy. You can throw another bait at them and they might eat it. So, but I'll take, usually wintertime, we're not really throwing the net too much. Got a bunch of shrimp. If you are throwing the net, 1/4-inch mesh, 10-foot net, and you're going to get your bait. So they'll eat little white baits. That's probably their favorite bait. I know everybody likes the shrimp. If you throw a shrimp at a triple tail, the way they kind of follow it, it's very slow. When they hit a white bait, they smash it. You get that fish on, just keep them around the buoy. But I would say if you cruising down the beach on my trip, we see one, most important thing is you set up. Do not waste your time shutting off the motor, not getting set up. Because sometimes you might have to cast at this fish 30 times. They will eat it. They're sitting right on the buoy, up against the buoy, like I'm talking nose on the buoy. They're not happy. Probably the tide's moving a little bit too much. They don't want to come off it. You got to get it right in there. So cast out front, drift it on there. Hopefully you hook up the fish and get him out. If he's down low, I'm talking like 2 foot below the buoy, you probably not going to go. He's not interested. Keep going. But during the winter time, you got your flounder. Mangrove snappers are still going to be really good. I know flounders are shut down at some point. I got to look that up. But trout will start being up there, silver trout. Got our kingfish on the beach. So when we're running and doing all these spots, that's what we're looking. We call it the bonus fish. Bonus triple tail. There's nothing better to eat. You see them out there. A very hard fighting fish. You're fighting them on light tackle. And they're sight casting. There's nothing better. But you gotta be set up for it. A lot of people pull up to it. They scare the fish. They don't spend their time. You can go from me to this first table away from that fish. If if you're set up right and literally drop it down, they'll eat it. Now, if you just run full speed behind it, and you're not getting set up, the trolling motor's kicking thrust around it, it's probably not gonna be the best. They'll go down, they might come up, but I'm not wasting that time. Some people will use a little float. I don't like that. I've seen them, instead of chasing the bait, they will follow the float. So I don't like that. I free line the baits. You can do whatever you want to do. I recommend just free lining it. But what you're looking for when you're going across all these buoys is something that looks like a garbage can. I mean, the fish sometimes are black, sometimes they're gray, sometimes they're golden black, but you'll see them, and then once you see the first one. But if you're just going out, just two buddies, just trying to hang out on the boat, bring 2 rods, a dozen shrimp, run from Paso Grill all the way to Clearwater and back. If you don't see nothing, go home. But you're probably going to get 2 triple tail. You know, like there's tons of buoys, but I like running the inside line sometimes, and I like to run a couple other lines a little deeper. But if nobody, sometimes they'll come back up. I've hooked the triple tail 3 times and he's still sitting there. That's a dumb one, but those big ones ain't dumb. But what I'm saying about make sure you have that tackle right, those light 1-aught circle hooks, if you get them from owner or Mustad, I don't care who it is, you pull up and there's that big triple tail that's 24 inches, you're gonna have a problem. It's gonna bend that hook to smithereens. And it's not, if it gets in, if you're lucky, you're still gonna bend it. But they're gonna take off, they jump, they do whatever they gotta do. But that's one of the coolest fish, I think. If there's any fish I could go fish for every day, that's what I would fish for. Tarpon are cool, but triple tail tastes great. And it's very easy. You get to just cruise around on the boat with a dozen baits, low stress, it's awesome.
It's like cheating.
Guatemala. Never eaten a tarpon. Don't put that on Facebook and get me banned.
Calling you out on my landed it at least, alright?
I took Torn out, he caught a couple permit. He did lose one. Slow to the dog.
Whoa! No, I did not. That's your fault.
Permit? Okay, if you want, Tommy just asked, how do you clean a triple tail? First thing, take 3 Miller Lights. Take heavy duty gloves. Very good knife. And just hope that you don't cut on the back of it and you get those top fins in your knuckles, because you're gonna bleed. But what you need is a very sharp knife. Make sure your knife's sharp, don't play around, don't bring that Mustad knife, try to cut into that thing, it ain't gonna work. These fish cut to the back, do not mess around with the rib cage. Your rib cage is as hard as your rib cage. They eat a lot of crustaceans. Come over it. I usually just cut right down diagonally. I'm not even messing with it. And you'll see. If you try to come over that rib cage, trying to cut through it, get a little piece of meat, you're wasting your time. You're dulling your knife. It's not going to be fun. But ice it right off the bat. Ice it right off the bat. The scales on these things, if you've never seen a triple tail, it's like a bluegill. Everything on it is sharp. The gill plates are sharp. They got little sharp teeth. It's a cool fish, very, very cool fish. But when you go to cut in it, you cut your first one, you're gonna be like, oh, that was dumb. I gotta refigure out what I'm doing here. I've done it. I used to take my wife, go out there and get them. Go to clean 2 triple tail, you're done. Clean a redfish, very similar to redfish, on big scales. My grandfather would never clean a redfish. It's the dumbest fish to clean ever. Big old scales, drove him nuts, stole his knife, doesn't care. Take the trout. Now, triple tail, very good eating, so yeah, he probably switch his opinion on it, but you've got to have a sharp knife, and just, you got to watch out on the top fins on those things. You go to clean them, they hit your knuckles, you're bleeding. Make sure you got some soap and bleach. all the good stuff. Anything else?
So you mentioned the small, cheap hooks are bad. What size hooks do you have?
Good question. He asked, what hooks would I use? I got them somewhere over here. So these are the owner 2-aught hooks. Now I use these for a lot. I use from snook, redfish, everything. I like them for permit. So they're very sharp, they're very good, they're heavy duty. Sometimes wintertime you got little smaller baits. These work very good compared to the, I think owner's got a 1-aught multi-light or something like that. I do like that sometimes. But this 2-aught is very good. I'll show you this. You can pass it around, just bring it back because I got to put it back on the boat. They're very heavy duty. They're very good. They got a little bit more girth to them than the rest of the stuff. If anybody else wants to see them, come up here and grab them.
Any tricks to gaffing a triple tail?
Good question. I did try to allegedly gaff a triple tackle. Allegedly. I did try to do it one time. I didn't have a net. It was a big one, and I hit it in there, and it bounced right off. So if anybody's ever tried to do one, don't do it. And that was underage then, so if anybody's going to put this online, I can't go to jail. Yes, so.
So, can you just clarify how many generations were born or raised ACs that you consider that?
I can't do that for legal terms.
Well, you were born and raised here.
I was born and raised here. My dad came from Pennsylvania the day after he was born here. Yeah.
Just trying to set it. And Nora.
Okay. Anything else you want to talk about before I move on? I got triple tail. Is there anything else anybody wants to talk about?
I think your daughter has a question. She's over here talking.
Thank you, Uncle Dave.
Can we bring the wife and daughter over?
Nobody else wants anything. Is anybody going to talk about anything else before I shut it down? Or you got any other questions? If not, you can come up to me after this. Tommy, why you ask me about Pompano?
Because it's on, that's what you told me what to talk about.
Okay, to clarify, I didn't ask about Pompano, but I'll talk to you about Pompano. Now, I'm not the expert on Pompano. You want to talk about the guys at Blinds Pass Girl Jetty? Them dudes are the experts at Pompano. You see 3 dudes over there throwing Pompano jigs at 6 o'clock in the morning? Experts. Those guys will not fish for anything else. They know what they're doing. So I will tell you about Pompano a little bit. Use light tackle. Do not 15-pound leader. Do not do anything more than that. So you need fast action rod, light. Don't be, I mean, you can almost use like a bass rod. I like the yellow docks jigs with the teaser on it. I like the pink ones. Some other guys like other ones, and sometimes they're different. Sometimes you use the pink docks jig with another teaser. I always like the teaser because that's usually what gets them Pompano. Now you can use all the passes, like saying Blinds Pass a Grill, Fort Soto, Clearwalk. Every pass has them, but the sleeper is the bridges. I've caught more Pompano off of bridges than I've ever caught on passes because nobody's there. So what you do is you take a little Pompano jig, 15-pound leader, tip it with shrimp, and all you got to do is just catch it in a little eddy in front of the pylons. Just jig it. A lot of times you're going to get big old grass trunks, but you'll get those big Pompano. Not small Pompano, big Pompano. So that's nice. There's not a lot of pressure because if anybody's ever fished for Pompano, loves Pompano, when the Pompano bites there, you're already late. So if there's 2 people catching Pompano, that's good. When there's 30 people there the next day, you're not going to get any Pompano. Most of those guys are leaving with a cooler and coming back and filling 3 more coolers. You're not gonna win with that. So I always like the bridges. I think that's good. And there's one of the things that's a sleeper is if you look in some of the islands around here, if you ever pay attention, you're on a boat, your prop wash, you'll see a pompano fly out. When that pompano flies out, they're thick. Ask the mullet fishermen when they're throwing for mullet. They got a lot of pompanos because them pompano are flicking all these crabs up, shrimps up. They like it. Check the edges of these little channels. That's a sleeper. Do not just see the 12 guys every day out there throwing docks jigs at all the same jetties. Some of them really know what they're doing, a lot of them don't. Go look at the other spots and you'll be able to catch a lot more pompano than you think. Passive Grill area, I used to watch these guys just annihilate the pompano. This is before YouTube and any of the other stuff, so it's kind of ruined now. But they used to kill it. They'd be out there every morning, they'd get their limit of pompano and get out before anybody even saw them coming. It's a little different now, but those bridge pompano are very thick, 10 cent. Fort Soda used to have a great amount of pompano. I haven't been there in a long time, but used to get all the pompano you wanted there. On the beaches, if you really wanted to try to just figure out that fishery, take your docks jig. I've never used fish bites. Those guys on the East Coast use them. I have no clue what they do. I'm not doing that. It looks like a gum strip. You can figure that out. I don't know how to do it. The docks jigs, take it up and down the beach. You'll see those areas. You can see the water. You can see little eddies. You can see little rip currents. That's where you want to be with these pompano. And just bounce. You'll get them. Take a little 5-gallon bucket. You don't have any live bait. Take a 5-gallon bucket with a little ice. Bounce around. If you find that area where they're at, they will be there. Now, water moves a little bit, but if you get 2 pompano, that's a pretty good day. And if you can get them where nobody else sees you do it, you can do that consistently. But light tackle, I don't want too heavy of a jig. I've never done the sand fleas, but I don't like fishing with a lot of people because I don't want them seeing what I'm doing because then it will ruin for the next couple days. But a sleeper is definitely the bridges. Very good pompano fishing. A lot of people don't know. You'll get permit in there too. So there's a.
Your wife told me to tell you the answer to any of the questions I ever had.
How do you feel about swivel guys?
What was that?
How do you feel about swivel guys?
Depends what you're doing with a swivel. If you're tying on for a plug, cool. But no. You gotta go talk about a lunker dog with that. He'll tell you the whole deal. So, I got a couple questions on here. Some of them I'm probably not gonna read because I haven't looked at them yet. I do have 2 of them here I am gonna read. What's the best way to fish Bogosiega Bay, lures, live, or frozen bait? It's a big area of water. There's different times of the year. I would say you have to put your time in. If you're looking for redfish, snook, trout, I always like wintertime. Springtime is very good. Right before those fish move out. Those fish start moving out before they get into the pass, trying to spawn. Those snook will eat anything. So you want live bait. I want big live white bait. Maybe a couple grunts. If you can get your hands on some mullet out of Dennis's cooler, cut those in half. That's where the 40 inches are going to be. Yeah, but they're in his front cooler pad if you ever want to know. So, now, there's a lot of areas. And as a kid, I would go up and down the narrows and do everything thinking like Jose Wahebe. He's casting in a mangrove line, he's going to get 40-inch snook. That's a lie. It doesn't happen. It's a lot of water. You got to find the oyster beds, find that little area of water. And sometimes them fish are out there in the middle of nowhere, so you have to play around with it. We're catching fish right now. We have all this fresh water, places you'd never think about. It's stupid.
twice the bait.
You know, we're laughing about it on the radio. You're catching fish, you're in the middle of nowhere, and they're there because the fresh water, they're running from it. So, Bogaciga Bay, find those little points. If you see some birds diving, go there first thing in the morning. I always was a big firm believer, if I saw seagulls diving, not pelicans, if I saw the little seagulls and little white birds diving down, there was redfish under them. And I've had some of my best days doing that. But if you're going to do Bogaciga and you're in that 3 to 4 foot of water, which it's probably going to be, some grass, a little bit of potholes, put one with a cork with a small pinfish on it, hook it in the back, then maybe do one with a shrimp, same thing, but always have 2 dead baits out the back. That's just rule of thumb. You never know what you're going to get. Them big redfish are lazy. Them big snook, they're not chasing a bait this time of year. So I would recommend that. What is the best way to fish for snook and intercoastal, live shrimp, frozen shrimp, or lures? Depends on what time of the year, but wintertime, shrimp is all you're going to really have. You might have some dead bait. Shrimp is good. You're going to get a larger size shrimp. Use your light tackle. Don't mess around with anything bigger. You're not trying to catch a wall mount. Get the hook set and figure it out then. I like 25-pound leader on this, because that way you can sling it out there, the shrimp will swim better. Nice 1/0, 2/0 hook. Sling it out there. You want it under docks. Don't mess with a cork under the docks. It's just going to make a mess for you. You can do a one with a split shot, maybe a foot or so above the leader. That shrimp will come up. Sometimes the fish don't react it. That shrimp will go down, come back up. They get reaction. Lure-wise, I don't do frozen shrimp in the winter, just for snook, ever. Now, frozen shrimp, if you're going offshore, nearshore, really good. Cheaper. But these lures right here, this is the cast me out right here. See how dark it is? Little yellowtail. Now, you will have the pinfish and mangrove snappers try to eat these things apart. But you take these, put a little jig head on. I don't even know what the jig head companies are now. Put these on, hit a couple of the docks. I used to, as a kid, hit every dock around here on these. Sometimes you get 9 rat reds out of them. And this bait will last you a long time. Now, like I said, the pinfish and mangoes will try to rip the tail off, but this will last you a long time. This is your winter time. You can take 1 pack, that'll last you winter time. I always liked the darker color. Now, the Old Faithful was always just that light white color, almost like a cream color. Put a jig head on it, doesn't matter the color, the paint's gonna fall off. Okay? Don't waste pink, yellow, blue, green. It's gonna fall off. So you put that on there, throw it out, get a good cast. Now, I was taught this, you think you're going slow enough, you're not ever going slow enough. Just a nice slow retrieve. Don't look on the movies or on TV, all these guys doing this crazy stuff. Very slow. These fish are lethargic. They do not want to move around in the wintertime. When you bounce this up, what they're going to react on is that dust, the silk, and the mud coming up. And they go, what the hell is that? Then they grab it. But this is probably, there was one that was a Bass Assassin used to make that was very similar to this. It was like a root beer colored, and it had that tail, and I would take it over anything. There is some light colored ones you can do, but you'll get trout, redfish, snook on this stuff, a lot of flounder you'd never think of, but like this is good stuff, and it'll last a long time. If I was gonna fish in the winter, this is what I would use. I wouldn't even go buy shrimp. Just take this, hit a couple good docks. If you got time to look around at night and see the docks with lights on them, that's what you do. Remember, wintertime, the reason these fish are moving over here is all this hot sun, well, whatever sun we have, and the water temperature will raise a little bit higher because it's radiating heat. Them fish will react to it. That's why you see all these fish sitting there, snook sitting there, because if it goes below 60, they're done deal. They're going to sit there. They know where to go. I'm not casting this out in the middle of nowhere. I'm hitting only docks. Maybe a little bit of a channel, but oyster bait. Don't be casting this in the middle of a flat. It's not going to do it. Use live shrimp for that. But very good bait for docks. Anything else? I do have a couple of I do have a question. Where do you catch permit and what tides? There's plenty of wrecks around here. I've caught them. I will tell you this. There's areas.
If someone infringes on your permit location, what would you do?
I'll answer the first question. Where do you catch permit and what tides? I answered the tide question earlier. Permit, there's plenty of wrecks. Guys south of us, Anna Maria, they got a lot more wrecks closer. Start your way from 7-8 miles and work yourself west. I don't want to get too much. Do not look for boats. Do not do that. Don't be that guy. I got a blue boat too. Don't look for me.
What happens if they get right on you?
But what I would say is, I've seen them. If anybody knows where Shell Key is, I've caught them in Shell Key. We caught one in Blinds Pass one day. They're there. They're not hungry. I've been on one day tarpon fishing in Egmont. I looked down, there's 1,000 of them. They wouldn't eat anything, but they're there. That's permit fishing. There's plenty of reefs and wrecks that you guys can all look on. There's plenty of stuff online now that you can look on. I don't do that stuff, but they're there. Just, you have to put in the time. It's more rewarding. Don't be that guy that just shows up on a Saturday and wants to do it. That's stupid. You need to put in the time. You'll like it. You'll enjoy it more. Don't just try to kill a permit to do that. Go get a grunt. Can you use shrimp for permit or only crabs? From David. You can use both. One of the first permit I ever hooked was on a big shrimp. I thought there were mackerel jumping out of the water, but it was a bunch of permit tailing. And yeah, they ate the shrimp and beat me up and broke me off. But yes, worst case scenario, get the jumbos or the selects. Don't get the small ones. Now, crabs do work better, but when those permit want to eat, they will eat anything. They will eat the shrimp. They'll eat a frozen shrimp. I've caught them on a squid spoon. It's not going to happen all the time. I caught one on 2 crab claws. That's not a normal deal, but if they're hungry, just try to get a bait out there. If you have anything, try to get a bait. If you see them, try to get a bait out. But I would recommend, personally, crabs. But if you're just out there bottom fishing, and you happen to look up and you see permit out there, free line a shrimp. Don't put a float, just free line it. Open the bail, feed it out. That line shoots out, game on.
Is it 8 miles or 7 miles?
Answer Gary's question.
No. I think that's it. If anybody else has anything, I guess if you want to book a trip, I got some cards up here. I do have some hats for $20 if you want to help out a homeless man. But I'm at a Bay Pines Marina, and come out there to Tiki Bar, hang out with us, book a trip, and I want to thank Old Salt, Elks Lodge, everything, but Old Salt does a lot of good stuff. I've hanging out with them for a long time. September they got this stuff where we take out everybody else, and these kids really need to be out there in the water. They've never been out. We're lucky enough to go do this every darn day. We take these kids out. It's a great time. So if you got a boat and you ain't doing nothing, get your butt up, put the boat on there and get out there and help these kids because they've never done it. So, but Old Salt does a lot for everybody.
Thank you, Joe, for coming out tonight. It was an amazing seminar. Thank you so much, sir. It was extremely informative. He's going to hang out for a while, I'm sure. The baby seems like she's smiling, so that's good.